Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and continue.
And very strong. Why? Manifestation. The nature of enlightenment. There's a paper I read last year. You wouldn't think that professors in Harvard are interested in enlightenment, but there's a discussion. One interesting paper that really struck me. 2 models of enlightenment. This professor was writing about, it's a paper on enlightenment in Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism. 2 models of enlightenment. One is called the paradigm shift model. The other one is called the ethical manifestation model. What is the paradigm shift model? In the Buddhist paradigm, I realize the emptiness of the world. I get prajna, the wisdom, which enables me to reach nirvana. I realize my true nature. In Vedanta, it would be, I realize myself as Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. I am infinite existence, consciousness, bliss. This is the paradigm shift. I am not body, not mind. And this is not a material universe. I realize the divinity within myself and the oneness of this divinity. This is paradigm shift. But what is ethical manifestation? Ethical manifestation is love for others. The complete, Swami Vivekananda's language, self-abnegation, complete unselfishness, expressed in service, complete removal of fear, fearlessness. So, the manifestation of the qualities of a Buddha in our life, that is called the ethical manifestation model. Now,
I will say, that's interesting though, that last part he said about the ethical selflessness, in the sense that in some sense, not necessarily servitude, but to serve others, not in a slave way, but more along the lines of giving and caring and taking care of other people. That's kind of weird because, I wouldn't say weird, but just odd, I suppose. A good word for that is the fact that Swami Sarvapriyananda here says, I think it was the 3 things that psychologists has identified as what makes humans happy. Things for yourself, like items and objects. Buying a purse, buying a new phone, buying a car, buying a house, buying the toy or whatever it is. Makes you happy temporarily, and then it just becomes boring. Next thing is finding a job, something to do that's activity, makes you happy for a little bit, nice, and then it just gets boring after a while. And the third one is serving others, and that's what gives the most joyfulness in terms of the objective reality, what scientists have discovered. It's not necessarily permanent joyness, but it's the one that lasts the longest. Doing something for other people. And he just, from my understanding, he just said here that Swami Vivekananda points it out, the ethical model.
I was just thinking the word manifestation used by Swami Vivekananda has both of these. The paradigm shift and the ethical manifestation. Both of these are there in Swami Vivekananda's model of spirituality. As we go on the path of Vedanta, we must gather more and more of this realization that I am not the body and mind, I am the witness consciousness. I am free of problems. Actually, not as a slogan. To actually see that, yes, there is a spiritual depth in me which is free of the problems. That I must admit. Then, next is as we go along, these qualities of unselfishness, of strength, of fearlessness, of love for others, of the control of the senses, these must manifest even before realization, must start manifesting. And after realization also, a perfect manifestation of these qualities. So this is called manifestation of the divinity. Full manifestation of divinity means knowledge of the divinity and also the qualities which go along with it. What is old and what is new? So Sister Nivedita, in her masterful introduction to the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, says all these things, which till now I've said, all these things would have been true even if Vivekananda had never lived. All these Gita, Upanishad, everything would have been there. As much valid and, she says, the word she uses is as much authentic, even if Vivekananda had not come. Then what is new in Vivekananda? And she says, of course, the ease of access and the presentation, how Vivekananda presents it, that is a very wonderful thing which he has done. But there is something unique which he has given. Here now we are going from old to new. We must see. What is the new thing? And Sister Nivedita puts it so powerfully that instead of paraphrasing her words, I would like to quote the original. Her original words are powerful, accurate, and sort of breathtaking in the vista she opens up before us. So what she says, it must never be forgotten that it was the Swami Vivekananda who, while proclaiming the sovereignty of the Advaita philosophy, which we just talked about now, as including the experience in which all is one without a second, also added to Hinduism here the doctrine that Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita are but three phases or stages in a single development in which the last named, Advaita, in which the last named constitutes the goal. This is part and parcel of the still, before I go on. So here is already a big contribution. Without Vivekananda, without Sri Ramakrishna, if you look at the philosophical scene in India, 1,000 years of conflict from Shankaracharya's time down to about 18, in one sense, still continuing, that is Advaita superior, is Advaita right, or Dvaita right, or Vishishta Advaita right? There are wonderful masters who have written enormous and sophisticated and deep dialectical texts attacking and defending for 1,000 years.
Sorry, real quick. When he said a big 1,000-year conflict, I'm sure from a Western mind's perspective, which is the one that kind of popped up at that moment, thought about like fighting, like literal physical combat. That's why I smiled. I'm like, you're dumb. Didn't mean physical fighting conflict, because that's the whenever I assume from the Western mind perspective. I'm sure it's not just Western, but definitely probably most Westerns will, when they hear conflict, they think of probably war or physical combat. But me having heard all of this, like the Buddhists versus the Advaita Vedantas, and a lot of discussion, the conflict is more along the lines of discussion. Conflicts might not be the right word to use there, but more along the lines of debates and discussions. That would be the better word, because conflict usually, for I think probably most people, I don't know, I can only assume Westerners, but it seems like conflict's more like physical combat. I'm just thinking they meet up together and they just start fighting each other, which is not what they did. I don't know. Perhaps I heard they just, they discussed, they talked, they argued, made points. Not argued, they debated and made great points. And that's amazing.
So that is wonderful, be that as it may, because it has led to the development of philosophy. That's great. But ultimately, at the end of it, where do we stand? Here is the beautiful insight, that this is a series of developments. And we remember here what Sri Ramakrishna approved of, Hanuman saying that as body I am the servant and you, Rama, are my Lord. As the Jiva, sentient being, you are the whole, I am thy part. And as pure consciousness, you and I are one reality. And these three are my firm conviction. So, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, Advaita. So this is one great, the significance of this cannot be overruled. Till now it is not fully accepted. And that's the sign of something new. It takes time to be accepted. But the truth of this actually strikes you directly when you think about it. Yes, it must be so. Then she goes on, much more remarkable. This is part and parcel of the still greater and more simple doctrine that the many and the one are the same reality, perceived by the mind at different times and in different attitudes. Or as Sri Ramakrishna expressed the same thing, God is both with form and without form, and He is that which includes both form and formlessness. As you dig deeper into Vivekananda, you begin to see it is Ramakrishna and Ramakrishna throughout. Only from the surface, scholars will see, Sri Ramakrishna said something, Vivekananda made these changes. But dig deeper, you will just see it is almost like Vivekananda is a shell through which Ramakrishna is shining forth. And Sister Nivedita says that this thing, which she just said, I'm quoting again, it is this which adds its crowning significance to our master's life. Here, by our master, she means Vivekananda. For here, why is this so important? What she says is breathtaking. For here, he becomes the meeting point not only of East and West, but also past and future. If the one and the many be indeed the same reality, then it is not only all modes of worship alone, but equally all modes of work, all modes of struggle, all modes of creation, which are paths of realization. No distinction henceforth between sacred and secular. To labor is to pray. To conquer is to renounce. Life is itself religion. To have and to hold is as stern a trust as to quit and to avoid. This is the realization which makes Vivekananda the great preacher of karma, not as divorced from, but as expressing jnana and bhakti. It's the old conflict between knowledge, devotion, and action. It is all synthesized into one vision. To him, Vivekananda, the workshop, the study, the farmyard, and the field are as true and fit scenes for the meeting of God with man as the cell of the monk or the door of the temple. To him, there is no difference between service of man and worship of God, between manliness and faith, between true righteousness and spirituality. All his words, from one point of view, can be read as a commentary upon this central conviction. This is Sister Nivedita, to be taken very seriously. She says all that Vivekananda taught. It's very difficult to reconcile because it seems contradictory at times. He says all that Vivekananda taught can be read as commentary on this central conviction, which is what she just said. He said, Vivekananda said, art, science, and religion are but three different ways of expressing a single truth. But in order to understand this, we must have the theory of Advaita. See, that last part is also important. Otherwise, we may run into a superficial, a facile way of saying, well, whatever we do is religion, whatever we do is spirituality. No, it is not. It can be spiritualized. For this you need this vision. This is actually what Ayan Maharaj is driving at when he talks about the Vijnana Vedanta of Sri Ramakrishna. It's a breathtaking vision. It's thrilling to think about how East and West ideals of both have come together in Vivekananda. How the entirety of tradition, 5,000 years of spiritual tradition in India, I'm not just saying Vedanta, also other traditions, including Buddhism, I say, all of it have come together in Vivekananda, but he's not about the past. He's about bringing the light of that past to bear on the present and on centuries to come. The vision of society, of religion and spirituality which he has got is we still have not understood it. It is too vast for us to begin to... I think it is a program for the future. It's a program for the future of not only religion, not only philosophy, ethics, but of civilization itself. I remember last year I met this young Vietnamese researcher, very intelligent young man, very articulate, deep thinker. He's doing research in management theory on work. He's doing his PhD, and he was working in Boston College. And I was at Harvard at that time. He called me and he said that I want to talk to you about Vivekananda. And we had set up a meeting. And he said to me that he didn't know anything about Vivekananda. He had no particular interest in Hinduism or India or anything like that. He said, while studying some of the greatest and noblest ideas in management theory, work, human relationships, goal of human life, what will motivate a person in this modern age, the role of money, the role of inspiration, all of these things he's studying. He says everywhere the highest and noblest ideas he found at work in modern society, he says they all are traced back to one name kept coming up again and again and again. In the late 19th century, Swami Vivekananda. He said, who is this person? He started studying and he was very impressed. So he wanted to talk to me and he's doing work. I hope he will publish books soon. I felt that behind the creation of our modern age, this may sound like a too big an assertion, but I'm convinced Behind the foundation of our modern age and the age that is to come is Vivekananda. And behind him, of course, is Sri Ramakrishna. A great force has been unleashed. It's not that all of it has come from Vivekananda. These forces are floating around in human thought. They coalesce into a force once in a while expressed in society.
Before he gets on to the next part, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I quite fully understand the message he's saying here with what Vivekananda has put out there, but I'm getting something along the lines of how I choose to understand Advaita Vedanta and how I choose to, well, how I choose to understand it. I guess that's how you just simplify that. And basically, it's the fact of the question I think I had in the last video about, is there one consciousness, or do we have all individual consciousness? You know, for me, is that really important? Not really. The most important thing in my opinion, in my mind, and my way of life is to, whether there's one consciousness or there are billions of consciousness out there, irrelevant, because the main goal that I'd want to get to is, I guess what you could say, kind of like bliss, contentment, not suffering, which is the main goal of Buddha, a lot of the Eastern philosophies, the way of life, and I guess that's what I'm striving towards. Ever since the world religion class in college and Buddhism, that they say that everything is suffering, that really stuck to me, and that kind of started my path this way. Even though I never really dove into Eastern philosophies or anything, but that just kind of, it's that one step in the door type of deal. You know, one step in the path of suffering, even though I stayed in that one step for a very long time, and kind of made little baby steps as I progressed through life and as I observed certain things. Like I've said before, that I've tried to separate myself from my emotions. Not the fact that my emotions is like different than me. It's still me, but I understand it and I don't let it control me. Whereas Advaita Vedanta says that your emotions are not you, and that, along with thinking along the lines of science, that, you know, our emotions are just chemicals in our brain, and the fact that we can take pills that can block pain, block emotions, because there's like what do you call it, like depression pills and stuff like that. It's really weird. I mean, but it's true, and you can block depression. So this alone is proof that our emotions are not us. Hard, concrete evidence that our emotions not us. You can say it's like, well, I mean, that's one way of proving this line that, you know, you're not the body, you're not your emotions. And this is how I try to concrete evidence stuff. Something based on science and something based on what Advaita Vedanta has been saying. It's the fact that you are not your emotions, you're not your body. And a great way to do with the not the body is like, again, Sadhguru's example, oh, chop off that finger. Is that true? No, that's your finger, right? But it's not you. And that's, again, proof, concrete evidence that you're not the body. The chemical blockers, the pain blockers, the depression pills, those emotions are not you. These are just little ways that science has proven that you're not this. And again, the reason why I say science, because this is kind of a lot of the way people think nowadays. It's like, oh, science proved this kind of stuff. And it's something that's you can test immediately, that you know, even though obviously Advaita Vedanta has been talking about that for a long time, but people don't really believe in things that are just spoken, because there's a lot of things that's been spoken throughout history, and what is true and what is not, we don't know until it's been tested. And I don't know everything about Advaita Vedanta. I don't know if there's anything in Advaita Vedanta that's been wrong and has been corrected through time. If it has been wrong, which I'm sure there has to be, but has been corrected, that's great. It means it's a method that's been, it doesn't stick to like, oh no, this is right, and even though we can acknowledge it, but it's still right no matter what. It's always right. You can prove it wrong, but no, it's right. That is not good. And that's what a lot of religions are. You can contradict it, but it's still right, which is not good. And so Advaita Vedanta, I'm sure, has, especially during 1,000 years of discussion with Buddhism, that it has refined its teachings, which is fantastic. It means that it is something that's evolving and getting better over time, especially as it's been challenged. And that's something that we can, and that's something scientists does too. It's like they're obviously science is still very, very young, and they use a lot of technology behind it, but it's still the same process as, let's evaluate it, let's put it through some tests, and if it's proven fact, then it's proven fact, and it can still change over time. Because we can only test so many things, kind of like back in the past, you can only discuss with so many people. You can't have that discussion with Westerners or Northerners or Southerners or Easterners or Southerners, wherever the nurses are. But yeah, so as you get more people to come in, you're able to get external ideas to even solidify the ideas behind Advaita Vedanta. Same thing with scientists. Science is very young. It takes a long time for things to get proven because they have to test a lot of things, and things takes time. Again, like Advaita Vedanta, it's been there for so long. It has been refined throughout the years. But yeah. Anyways, my whole spill is that that's what I'm kind of doing. I'm picking out things like I like Lakhani's spiritual humanism. I don't like spiritual, I just like humanism. Spiritual or not, it's irrelevant. Just humanism, the idea behind spiritual humanism. I like Vivekananda's idea about bhakti, karma, and jnana. Merging all of those to be better. And again, this seems to be like the three things that even Swami Chinmayananda has expressed. But of course, he does add the fourth, the Raja, or the Atman, and same with Osho as well. But yes, anyways, trying to find, not sticking with the books and making sure that I follow the path of the book so rigid and so stern that I can't deviate from it, but more along the lines like Hani has said, about finding your path that works really well, so long as you're seeking the truth and trying to better yourself. That is the right path. Not following Advaita Vedanta, not following this version, not following that version. Obviously, we look at these books to better ourselves and to find our own path to happiness. No one path in Advaita Vedanta is going to make you happy, because there's probably many paths to Advaita Vedanta, I'm sure, probably. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. I doubt it's really one path. Hinduism, I guess I'll say it that way, because Advaita Vedanta, Buddhism, and all that's the same path. Although Vedanta has the different kinds of yogas that you can follow, that's the reason why there's not I don't think there's one path to Advaita Vedanta. There's many paths, and they're just it basically kind of an umbrella term for this different paths that Advaita Vedanta has, which I think follows the 4 yogas. I'm not exactly sure on that though.
What are some of the implications? Quickly, I'll touch on, in time remaining to me, a few areas. The area of spiritual practice, the area of ethics, area of religion. So how do we realize all these things, what we're talking about? The way to realize all these things is called yoga. Yoga is a spiritual path. And here I want to touch upon another aspect of what is old and what is new. Once again, we are asking, what is old and what is new in Swami Vivekananda's teaching of Vedanta? So we come to the area of spiritual practice, of the yogas. What is the question here? Well, if you look at spiritual practices, there's a wide range of spiritual practices in Hinduism and in other religions also. You can meditate. Meditation is so popular now. That also, to a great extent, is due to Vivekananda. Meditation is so popular. There is devotion, very common. Worship, prayer. There is much less known spiritual investigation.
Oh, yeah.
Philosophical investigation to spirituality, the path of jnana. I remember a monk, people are confused about it, a monk, a senior monk in Belur Math one day saying, "What are you studying, philosophy?" I said, "Yes." "Oh, what is the use of studying philosophy? This is, you have to, for God realization, what is the use of studying philosophy?" I quoted Vivekananda back to him. I said, "Do it by work or psychic control or philosophy." He uses the word philosophy for Jnana Yoga. That is the truest sense of philosophy. You see why this wrong idea is there, and it's understandable. Even when we studied philosophy when we were novices in Belur Mutt, I remember the gentleman who used to come and teach us. He was a retired professor of philosophy, Nirod Babu. He was a disciple of Swami Vivekananda. Little man, fiery with huge eyes and the booming voice, and he would pace back and forth on the platform and yell at us. We were brahmacharis, and he'd say, "Please be careful, Maharaj." And we said, "Be careful. This is philosophy, and Western philosophy. Philosophy was teaching us Western philosophy. Philosophy is philosophia, love of wisdom. It is thinking about philosophical subjects. It is not darshana. Darshana is the seeing or the realization of the ultimate reality, which you read in Vedanta, Sankhya, the Indian traditions. So making in our minds that is a clear distinction between the Indian approach and the Western approach. I always felt uncomfortable with it, but anyway, he is a great authority, so he's saying it must be true, and it's true, the word philosophy. And if you look at the textbooks, they are thinking, intellectually thinking about philosophical topics. Until last year, I came across this little book, A History of Thought, by Luc Ferry, who is a French philosopher, and he was the Minister of Education in France. I think only in France philosophers are elevated to high positions. I asked a philosopher once last year. He was French, but French Canadian. What accounts for the importance of philosophy in France? One reason he said that it's taught from school days. It's a subject in India. It's disappearing even in college and university. Everybody wants to be a computer engineer or doctor or something like that. Nobody wants to be a philosopher. So it's disappearing from colleges and universities in India. In France, it is taught in school.
Well, it doesn't pay well, I don't think. Who gets paid to just sit there and think, right? That's something they do as a hobby on your downtime. I mean, that is something that, it's not a job. It shouldn't be a job, right? A way of life, how you conduct yourself, how you handle yourself is your own job. Someone doesn't have to pay. It's like, hey, look, handle yourself right. Here's some money. Sit there and think about it. Meditate on that. I'll pay $2, $3, $5, $10, $20 an hour to do that. But oh shoot, I had something to say to you a little bit earlier about what he was talking about, but I can't remember now. So let's continue on.
And of course, university. Anyway, Luc Ferry wrote this book, full of insights. Wonderful. If you read it, you will get the feeling that no English-speaking person has ever done philosophy. There's an absolute contempt for English-speaking philosophers. Contempt in the sense he doesn't criticize. He simply ignores. If you look at the bibliography, the books to be read, not a single English, American, Australian philosopher is there. All the books are French or German writers. Greek and then French or German. That's it. Anyway, but what insight did I get? One of the insights I got was, this is not philosophy. That's not the right word. Theory. Theory is the right word for what we do. So what is theory? He says the root of theory is theon orao, seeing of divinity. Exact meaning of darshana. Anyway, that's just an aside I wanted to share with you. So, philosophy is to realize God. So, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, these are the different yogas, different spiritual paths that Swami Vivekananda spoke about. What is old and what is new? What did Swami Vivekananda do in this field? Here is the old.
Okay, before it gets to the old, I remember what I wanted to say. A lot of people in the comments, or well, not a lot of people, just people in the comments have said that you should be practicing this. As you're doing this, why not just practice it? And actually, I thought about it just now whenever he's talking about this, especially with Vivekananda, that's what he was saying. And actually, I do. I didn't realize this. I think I practice jnana more so than anything. Well, I mean, obviously we practice all the three yogas, bhakti, karma, and jnana. But jnana a little bit more in terms of the fact that, at least with the emotion part, I mean, that's a really bad for me is the emotion part. Don't get offended. don't necessarily care what people say. So basically, as I'm going through the day and as emotions come up, because I think jnana is supposed to say, I am not, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. You detach yourself from objects and from, karma, bhakti, because you separate yourself from your actions, you separate yourself from your emotions, and you also separate yourself from your body, your mind, your thoughts, and your surroundings. And so how I practice this on every day is the fact that obviously whenever something happens and it's supposed to rile you up, doesn't. Obviously it has in the very beginning, but as I continue to detach myself from my emotions, or not necessarily detach, but separate myself from my emotions in terms of the fact that I understand it and I don't let it control me. And as more things happen, as it happens to me, I practice that moment. So someone tries to get mad at me, whether if it doesn't affect me, then I don't care. Like he can say whatever he wants, and I probably just don't care. And at that moment, am I practicing bhakti yoga? I'm sorry, jnana yoga? I am not what he says. Actually, probably, because I am saying that I am not what you're saying. If that makes sense. And also, if there's something that, like, obviously if you have close friends, their words mean a lot more to you. And the fact that if they say something kind of hurtful, because not necessarily intentional, but it's kind of like a disagreement with something that you really have passion about, that you care about. And then when it hits you like that, then that's a moment to practice jnana yoga, where I am not this. You try to separate yourself from that. And something like that's what I've been, in a sense, practicing. As it comes up, I have to keep realizing this. Something I have to keep pushing myself to. It's like, don't get, angry, upset, or whatever it may be, offended or whatever. I've gotten to the point where I rarely ever get offended, rarely ever get whatever. It almost feels like you don't care, but it's not that. I just have a great understanding of things external. But of course, the people that are very close to you affects you a lot more, and it's a little bit more difficult. But at the same time, I don't really run into those very often, because again, you're around people that care about you, so they're not gonna just freaking like smack you in the face with words.
The traditional approach, which is perfectly all right, and which, by the way, because I'm going to go beyond it, I'm now making my position secure by saying I believe in it entirely, and I'm entirely grounded in it. If you ask me questions, I'll give you answers from this traditional perspective. But still, we must see what Vivekananda did. The traditional perspective is from Advaita Vedanta. You are Brahman. And our reaction is, that's cool, but I don't know it. I don't feel it. What's the point of saying such things? I have no idea what you're talking about. That is called ignorance. So in Advaita Vedanta, they say the purpose of spiritual practice. What is the purpose of spiritual practice? To remove the misconception, the wrong idea that you are not Brahman. It is not to make you Brahman. You are already Brahman. To remove the ignorance about yourself. I do not know that I am Brahman. It doesn't make any sense to me. Good. You're on the right path. This is called ignorance. And we have the medicine for it. We have already displayed the correct symptom. Now here is the vaccine for it. So, the vaccine is what? Knowledge. For ignorance, the vaccine is knowledge. And ignorance of the self, knowledge about the self. And now we are on sure ground. Here are the Upanishads, here are the other Vedanta texts which tell you about, now we will tell you about Drigdrishya Viveka and Panchakosha Viveka and the analysis of the 3 states, the 5 sheets, the seer and the seen, so on. And there's a method to it.
Real quick, so I've watched many different things, and as far as I can tell, Advaita Vedanta is the 4 yogas: Karma, Bhakti, Jnana, and Raja Yoga. Then there's Kriya Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, as far as I can tell, of those 2. Then, of course, there is Buddhism, which is completely separate. But is Kundalini and Kriya Yoga under Advaita Vedanta, or are those something separate? I assume they're separate because, for one, I've not heard anyone that speaks about Advaita Vedanta speaks about those two. I think Kriya Yoga, I heard Kriya Yoga and Kundalini from Sadhguru and Kundalini from Swami Taratmananda. And it seems like, at least from Swami Taratmananda, is that Kundalini is not taught in Advaita Vedanta. Because, or at the very least, his master told him not to follow that path. But I don't think he gave Swami Taratmananda the reason why. But anyways, is Advaita Vedanta just those four yogas, Karma, Bhakti, Jnana, and Raja?
There's a course of treatment,
Or is there
which
more?
is hearing, reflecting, and meditating. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. This is called Jnana Yoga. But then we complain. I've been attending classes, as somebody said, I've been attending classes before you were born, Swami, and I'm still not enlightened. All right, Vedanta says that there is another layer of problems. What is the second layer of problem? First layer of problem, ignorant mind. Second layer of problem, restless mind. Mind is unable to grasp the teachings. This is in Sanskrit, it is called vikshepa. And the solution for restless mind is focus, concentration, ekagrata in Sanskrit. And there is a method for it. And that method is called upasana. Upasana, it's basically, literally it means worship, but you can see it includes elements of yoga and bhakti, devotion and meditation.
Yoga and Bhakti. That's weird. Did they mean Raja? Because I always understood Raja as meditation. Bhakti Yoga, I mean, yoga is just all the four. There's many, and then Kriya and Kundalini Yoga. So by just saying yoga, you're kind of saying a whole effect of it. Or is yoga very specific to meditation as well? Because they're all, like yoga, yoga according to Sadhguru is unity, isn't it? Huh. But anyways, did he mean Raja and Bhakti? Because devotion I understand as Bhakti. Meditation always understood as Raja.
Well, there also we have an objection. I have taken mantra diksha, and I do meditation morning and evening. No good. No concentration of mind. Mind is either sleepy or it's restless. Third layer of problem. Vedanta says you're still on the course. No problem. Third layer of spiritual problem. What is that? Impure mind. Ignorant mind, restless mind, impure mind. In Sanskrit, chitta mala.
Real quick. So far, all the issues always the mind, it seems, isn't it? Is that just the... I guess, is that just the ultimate issue? Is the mind, the fact that the mind is so tied down to Maya, the illusion, so compelling, so... Well, compelling, I guess, is the best word for that one. But yeah, so compelling. I mean, obviously sometimes, your body itches and, you're hungry or you're thirsty or you're too hot, too cold. Those can be solved pretty easily. But the mind, that's the reason why I say Raja Yoga or meditation is the most difficult, because the mind is the thing that always gets to you. But someone said that freaking meditation is easy. Good for you on that one. To me, Raja, meditation is the most difficult.
And the solution for impurity of mind is, of course, purity of mind. And it's one word that we keep hearing in Vedanta, Chitta Shuddhi, purification of the mind. All spiritual practices, first of all, they must accomplish purification of the mind. And here, one powerful way of accomplishing purification of the mind is Karma Yoga. All work we do for selfish purposes, it just rivets one more link of ignorance upon ourselves. But when we work for, altruistically, for the service of others, for the welfare of others, you can add bhakti to it as a worship of God by serving others. Then, mind is purified. Now you have a nice matrix, 3x3 matrix. Impure mind, solution purity, comes by Karma Yoga. Restless mind, solution concentration, comes by Upasana, which is Jnana Yoga, which is Bhakti Yoga and Raja Yoga together. And then, ignorant mind, solution is knowledge, and that comes by Jnana Yoga. Note, it is Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, which removes ignorance and gives you liberation. You will realize, I am Brahman. The others have supporting roles. Bhakti, devotion, has a supporting role. Karma definitely has a supporting role. Not the main actor, not the main player. What am I talking about? Traditional approach to the four yogas in Advaita Vedanta. This is the Advaita Vedanta paradigm. Notice what Vivekananda says. By one or more or all of these and be free. Would the traditional Advaitin agree? No. I've heard very good masters of Advaita criticizing Vivekananda's approach. He says that by one or more, of course not by one or more, only by path of knowledge, only by jnana. We are not dismissing the importance of meditation. We are not dismissing the importance of bhakti. We are not dismissing the importance of karma. But they are all preliminary. They prepare the mind. And the prepared mind will become enlightened through Vedanta.
That's weird. I would not have put Jnana as the top. I would have put Raja as the top. Because again, the mind must be pure. Or pure, ignoranceless, and I forgot what the last one is. Obviously, you want to make sure your actions by physical means and by thoughts of actions are pure. You want to make sure that you have devotion to your craft, whether it be through God or, to me, in my opinion, just a devotion to something good. It doesn't have to be through God or anything like that. And then jnana, the knowledge that you're not all of these things. By acknowledging that you're not the body, the mind, and all these other things, then you can meditate to have self-realization of your true self, your Atman. Because if you don't have you cannot meditate with ignorance, I don't think. That's the reason why those three paths are ignorance, the way out of ignorance, according to what he just said, is jnana, knowledge. So, in order to meditate, well, if you have ignorant mind, you can't do it. If you have a restless mind, you can't do it. If you have impure mind, you can't do it. All of them are trying to get you to a meditative state, but all of them are different paths. All of them are required to get to a meditative state, to get to Raja. So that's the reason why, again, I say Raja is the most difficult. I will forever say that, at least for me. But and also the fact that you need those three, and that's the reason why those three are also said by Osho, where it says separate yourself from your body, separate yourself from your emotions, separate yourself from your thoughts. He said those things. He never talked about the Raja, at least not from the videos that I watched. And this is the same thing that Swami Chinmayananda has said about the BMI that he explained some time ago: body, mind, intellect. Body being karma, your actions and your thoughts. Intellect, in your mind being your emotions, and then your intellect being the knowledge, your knowing. To get to, I can't quite remember, it's been a little bit, but perhaps Raja, and then right above that is the Atman. So again, you need those three first to be able to meditate Raja to get to the true self, the Atman. So this is it's kind of weird how he said in terms of Advaita Vedanta it's jnana, which is weird. Again, I'm not by no means master, but that's my assumptions.
This is the traditional approach. Now, what is the problem here? The problem here is only this. Nothing absolutely wrong with this. This is perfect. It'll work. If you take this, then you'll become enlightened, certainly. And notice, it does not dismiss the yogas. It gives primacy to one, but includes all the others. They are absolutely necessary, but they will not take you to the goal finally. The problem here is this. This is entirely built upon one philosophy. The philosophy is you are Brahman and you are ignorant of it. Ignorance is the problem and knowledge is the solution. So, yes, of course, what else? Not what else. There are many, many other traditions of the same Upanishad, same Bhagavad Gita. There is the Dvaita Vedanta and Vishishta Dvaita Vedanta and Shuddha Dvaita Vedanta and Dvaita Advaita Vedanta. More than 1,000 years after Shankaracharya, of thousands and thousands of practitioners. They have produced great saints, women of enlightenment and realization who have motivated and inspired entire civilizations. What do they say? Is knowledge the final goal? No. They say devotion is the final goal. By the path of bhakti.
By the path of karma.
What will Ramanujacharya say? He say, first of all, karma will purify the mind. Correct, we agree. Then comes knowledge. I am not the body and not the mind. I am a spark of consciousness. Then comes devotion. You are a spark of consciousness and God is the whole mass of consciousness, is the bonfire of which you are a spark, is the whole of which you are a part. You see how the metaphysical assumptions make all the difference in practice. Advaita Vedanta will put Jnana at the top, Vishishta Advaita and Dvaita Vedanta, and they are in the majority. They will put devotion at the top. And to hold on to this, that Jnana itself is the only way to God realization, what do you have to do? You have the unwelcome alternative, unwelcome implication of saying, all those others are wrong. All those others are wrong.
Whew.
That makes one a little uneasy.
Yeah.
All these traditions of devout men and women for thousands of years and such wonderful saints, century after century. You just read their writing and you will feel inspired immediately. And you read the Vedanta, I'm an Advaitin. I'm saying read the Advaita classics, you will fall asleep immediately.
But yeah, that's very much the reason why I'm very much turned off in terms of Abrahamic religion, because they say they're the only right path. There's no other path. This is literally the path that you have to take, whether you like it or not. There's no other path than this. If you step off the path one step, you committed a sin, or whatever, you did wrong. You must ask for forgiveness and do whatever. It's like, it's so stringent and so crazy. We're human beings. We make mistakes. You can't be so harsh and critical. You're gonna get paranoid by all the things that you do. It's like, did I do right? I don't know. Let me just go ask for forgiveness, just in case. Better go ask for forgiveness now before I die, because otherwise I might have a sin and I go straight to hell or something like that. It's, whew. And it's really weird for Advaita to say that, you must acknowledge all of the path is wrong. Oh, I don't like that. And Swami here even says that, which I'm glad. It's, I mean, perhaps if you're following their path, no, I mean, I still wouldn't even say that.
So, can they be wrong? Can they be lesser? Can they be unenlightened? Mirabai, the great devotee, was she an Ajnani? A person of ignorance? Of course not. Mirabai had the same realization as Adi Shankaracharya had. Adi Shankaracharya had the same bhakti as Mirabai had. So, if you want to take a step back and see the big picture, you can't insist on one paradigm, one structure. This works, but that also works. Mm-hmm. Why it works, why different structures work, we will see later. But it works. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and says, only bhakti will take you to the goal. You don't have to worry so much about doing unselfish work and sitting and controlling the breath and meditating. Deep devotion, love for God will give you purity of mind, will concentrate your mind, and will bring about the grace of the Lord by which you will be free. So, it works. That is why Swami Vivekananda, he says by one or more or all of these. If you insist on holding on to one particular paradigm, perfectly welcome to do so. And Swami Vivekananda has given 100% stamp of approval. But saying that this is the only way and the others are not at all true, no.
Yeah.
The justification for this Swamiji will give later. Why all these things work. Why not only one? So, Swami Vivekananda, then what does he recommend? He recommends a harmony of yogas. He says, by seeing the life of Sri Ramakrishna, I can see a person who is as liberal as the sky and as deep as the ocean. To be staunch, you don't have to be a fanatic. To be liberal, you don't have to be superficial. You can be profound and deep and be liberal also. A person who manifests karma, action, who manifests devotion, who manifests knowledge, and who manifests meditation to the highest possible extent in one life. It is possible. Swami Vivekananda says, by seeing Srinath, I have seen one such. Of course, if we look at Swami Vivekananda's life, we see one such. He is himself a manifestation of knowledge and devotion and meditation and work. We may not attain to that perfection in all of those. But Swami Vivekananda's great insight was, it is actually easier if we practice all together. And if it is satisfying for you as it is for me to have a particular structure that knowledge alone will liberate me at the end, fine. At no point does he object to it. You have that. So, the harmony of the four yogas. And again, two more points. One thing is that if you look at the texts themselves, If you look at a bhakti text like the Naradiya Bhakti Sutra, does the Bhakti Sutra ever say, here we shall teach bhakti as a support, the second level of the problem of Advaita Vedanta? No. He says we teach bhakti as a way to liberation, to attain God. If you take our yoga text, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, anywhere does it say in sutras that this is just like a auxiliary kind of, you take this as an audit course. It's not a credit course. Ultimately, you have to go to the Upanishad after this. Finish this course and then go to the Upanishads and attend Vedanta classes. No. Patanjali is very clear. By this method, you will attain Kaivalya, liberation. Kapila is very clear in the Ishvara Krishna Sankhya Karika, very clear that this little book alone will give you the highest. So nobody ever says that we are part of a bigger scheme which is your scheme. No. You may include us as part of your scheme. Fine. Another thing, this fascination we have for meditation or philosophy or even devotion, it's often a misappraisal of ourselves. We hardly know the structure of our own minds, our own personalities. And what seems to us on the surface may not be the truth about us. The Guru sometimes knows much better about us than we know about ourselves. Swami Vivekananda himself says that you think I am a jnani, I am jnana on the outside, but inside I am all bhakti. He says, I am as soft, I have as soft a heart as like a woman's heart I have inside. I am all bhakti inside. And then he says, but the old man, he was bhakti outside, inside he was all jnana. It's quite possible. I have seen closely in the lives of monks whom I met, advanced spiritual seekers. They seem one thing on the outside, and they have a very deep, private, inner spiritual life. So outside might seem very austere and forbidding and very severely philosophical, and inside full of devotion and love, not expressed. So, harmony of the four yogas.
Well, we'll pause it right there and save the rest for the last part. So I actually have said quite a bit in this one. But again, I really love Swami Vivekananda's way about the fact that you follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, or whatever, however many that you want. I don't know if Swami Vivekananda goes past the 4 yogas. So far as I've heard, at least from Swami Sarvapriyananda here has said, is that I guess those are just the 4 paths that he devoted. But yeah, it's really, I did not know Advaita Vedanta was jnana. I would have figured it was Raja. But then again, because that's me thinking that Raja is the hardest. At least for me, it is the hardest. No question there. But yeah, and other ones, karma, bhakti, and jnana, something that you work on every day. I forgot who said it. Dandapani says, why just meditate 5 minutes a day? Why not have the meditation throughout the entirety of the day? Same thing with practicing your karma, your bhakti, and your jnana. As you go through the day, practice karma yoga through your actions and thoughts. Practice your bhakti by your devotions to your work, even to your work. I mean, again, I would never say that you'll practice the love of God. I mean, practice it for the good. This is why I like Hani saying about spiritual humanism, even though I would just say humanism, about just being better as a human, improving yourself, being the better you. Not saying that you're better than everyone else, but just being better than yourself than you were 5 minutes ago or yesterday or whatever, maybe, being better you. And jnana, by acknowledging the fact that anytime you feel these emotions that, that is not you, and try to, and from my perspective, understand why you're feeling that way. That way, next time you handle it, it doesn't impact you quite so hard, and you have an understanding. I think the better that we understand stuff, the less that it will affect us. It's not to say that you're immune to it, but it's just that you have an understanding of it. It's like, oh, I acknowledge the fact that I'm feeling this way. I know why, and I know the solution. Something along those lines. Anyways, that's part 2 of Swami Vivekananda's Vedanta's teachings. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.